What if the end of your marriage wasn't the end of your story, but the beginning of your healing? In her debut memoir, Divorcing into Paradise, Seeing the Truth About Love, Jennifer King shares a powerful journey of forgiveness, grace, and choosing peace over resentment. Sometimes love changes. Sometimes people grow apart. But that doesn't mean you can't evolve, heal, and create a new kind of relationship built on respect. Discover why readers have given it a 5-star rating on Amazon and see why this inspiring memoir is giving hope to anyone learning to love life again. Get your copy of Divorcing into Paradise today on Amazon.
Hey, welcome to Love After the Fairytale with author Jennifer Lynn King, a show where we have honest conversations about healing, hope, and finding love after heartbreak. I'm your co-host, Coach Simone Kelly, and on today's show, we'll be talking about dating again after heartbreak and sharing insights to help you move forward with confidence. Let's get into it. Welcome back, Jennifer.
Hello.
You rocked your first show, so now we're on your second. I'm so proud of you. So
Yeah.
exciting time to be sharing your message with the world, right? So now I want to first introduce all the guests that we have. We have Gladys, Diaz, and Michelle Roza. What's up, y'all? Welcome back. And we also have Kamesha Townsend, a very good friend of mine. Welcome. She's been a part of, not on the show yet, but you've helped me with a lot of my classes. Whenever I teach my workshops, she always lets herself be a guinea pig for my intuitive class. Gladys Diaz and Michelle Roza are known as the Love Twins, are certified transformational and dating relationship coaches, NLP master practitioners, inspirational speakers, and co-founders of Heart's Desire International. Their mission is to help women attract healthy, lasting love, reignite passion in their relationships, and create fulfilling lives and partnerships they truly desire. And they are located in South Florida, and they have been on Own Your Power Radio a few times. They're amazing. I love them. I actually have made some lifelong friendships at your workshops. She teaches, especially boss chicks. That's one of the things I love. One of the workshops I went to many years ago was teaching women how you don't bring the boardroom to the bedroom. Was that it? I remember that shit.
It's how to be the unstoppable woman in your business and the irresistible woman in your love life.
Yeah, but there was one episode. I mean,
it was unstoppable in the boardroom and irresistible in the bedroom.
In the bedroom. Okay, yeah. But I remember that was a really good, really good, because there's so many women that are just CEOs of business and they don't know how to balance it and tone it down a little bit, so I love that. And then we have Kamesha Townsend, who is like I call her my big little sister because she's younger than me, but she acts like she's my mama. But she is a blessing to me, an angel to me. She's one of the people that helped me make my move to Atlanta and my move to Costa Rica very easy because of her. So I love her to death. And I've been with her, holding her hand through a lot of stuff. So I've seen it all.
Yes.
So Kamesha is a corporate sales leader in pharmaceutical sales, a speaker, an entrepreneur, and the founder and CEO of Insight Development Collective, where she helps individuals and organizations transform potential into performance through leadership development and career strategy. Beyond her professional accomplishments, she's a devoted wife and mother of 2 girls. My booze. So welcome. I'm so happy to have you on the show. I remember when I was telling her about Jennifer's show, she's like, I think I'm ready to share my story. All right,
Netflix series.
Look, this show is only 30 minutes. We ain't got that much time. But Jennifer, you want to ask the first question to the expert?
Yes, I do. How do you know when you're truly ready to start dating again after a breakup or a divorce?
So Michelle and I both have different stories. Michelle was married for 13 years and then she was divorced, and she dated for 5 years before finding the man that she's now very happily married to. I was widowed. And so I thought I was never going to love again. Back then, I used to think that you found one person and that was the one and that was it. And there was only the one. So when the one passed away, I was like, well, I'm never going to find love again. Nobody's ever going to love me. I'm not going to love and be loved again. And I always say I'm a very smart woman and I'm rarely wrong. Just kidding. But I'm really glad that I was wrong that time. So I was ready much sooner than I thought I would be, because never is a very long time. And I actually attracted my husband into my life 10 months after my first husband passed away. And if you would have told me that I was going to meet him that day, I would have told you were crazy. I had just gotten stood up by somebody else. I was like in that, this is never going to happen for me phase, So, never to 10 months was a long time. I think what makes the difference is how willing are you to heal whatever it is that needs to be healed, whatever pain, whatever heartache and not just the event. If it wasn't the right relationship, what patterns get to be broken so they can be replaced? If it's grief, like in my case, first of all, what was having me think nobody could ever love me again? Like, that's what I got curious about, because when I heard myself say that, I was like, what did you just say? And then I said, well, what would have you say that? And that's where I uncovered my own insecurities and my own fears and limiting beliefs. So I believe that what makes you ready is how willing are you to do the work to heal whatever space you're in, so that you don't bring your past into your next relationship.
Good one. Now, Michelle, since you've experienced the opposite, a different story, right? So share with us, when did you know you were ready?
When I'd had enough. I had enough of settling. I had enough of putting up with BS. I had enough with dating the wrong guy over and over again in a different body. And
rewind.
different body. It's like, okay, that one was not Cuban. That one was African American. Why is this happening to me? It wasn't happening to me. I was the common denominator in all of those relationships. And so when Gladys is doing the healing work, very important, because if you don't, you're just going to try to prove that you weren't wrong in the last one. You're just trying to prove it. And I found myself kept trying to prove that I could get a man and I could get somebody to fall in love with me and I could get somebody, like, all of that is all about proving. And I was exhausted. I was completely exhausted. I was feeling worse than I did, because one thing that I thought, and we teach this in our courses, is I thought if I changed the person, I would change the pattern. Changing the pattern, changing your partner does not change your pattern.
There's a lot of fixers out there.
Gosh. So when I had enough, and like Gladys said, I started getting curious about, and I was talking to a coach and he said, because I was like, oh, they're all liars, they're all cheaters, they don't know what they want. Right. And he's like, okay, what else do they have in common? Well, they're all men, well, there's biology. Well, and finally I couldn't think of anything else. All the reasons had run out. All the reasons why this was working out. And then he said, what do these men have in common? And I said, I don't know. And he said, you are what they have in common. They don't even know each other. I wanted to punch him in the face, but because it was so true. But that question changed my life, because I started, instead of getting mad and staying mad and being right that he was wrong, I was like, what if I am unconsciously, subconsciously attracting these men? And what if I could uncover where that's coming from and transform it? Would that make a difference? And it made all the difference. I could have never attracted the high quality, amazing, gorgeous man I'm married to right now.
I love your husband.
In that
He's a
space.
sweetie pie. Yeah. Yeah. He actually helped us in the workshop one time too. I remember that. Yeah, he's awesome. So let me ask you this: with the healing process, a lot of people don't know what that means. So what are some suggestions of things that they can do to start the process of healing?
The very first thing.
And it's not, what's that expression, y'all, where they say, get over one man by getting under another one? It's not that.
Yeah, no, that. Everybody write that down. It's not that. The very first thing is, and it's in the Bible, it's all over the place. You've got to be clear about what you want. You got to be clear, first of all, who am I? Because when Michelle had that coach love her enough, care about her enough to say something she couldn't see and didn't want to see. And when I saw when I asked myself, what would have me say that, you've got to be clear about Who am I? I had identified myself as somebody who could only be loved once. Why? That identity had nothing to do with my first husband, has nothing to do with my second husband. It had to do with me and my own programming. So the first thing was like, who am I really at the core, the essence of who I am? And what really do I want? Because that whole thing about jumping into another relationship or thinking that it was the past person or thinking, I just got a lady who wrote to me the other day. She's like, will somebody love me if I'm this broken? I'm like, sweetheart, you are not broken. Your heart is broken, but you are not broken. You just need to find yourself again. The piece of you broke off. So you've got to really look at who am I really? The woman I want to be, the woman I choose to be and become. And what do I want? And that's not his height, his weight, his salary, because those things don't give you forever.
Right.
It's what do I want to experience every single day of my life in a relationship with another person? And then the healing work can begin because now I'm moving towards that. So what are you healing? We call them love barriers in our work. Limiting beliefs, fears, and dysfunctional patterns that just do not work to create love, intimacy, partnership, romance, and a real lasting relationship. And when you have the guidance to do that, then you become that unstoppable, irresistible woman who knows that she's worthy. I'm about to drop one. Knows that she's worthy and deserving. Because being worthy is knowing that you can have what you want. Deservingness is about allowing yourself to receive it. And so when you allow yourself to receive love, when you own your worth, you attract the person who is a match for you, your vision, and your values. That's how it works.
That's pretty deep.
Yeah.
My takeaway would be everywhere you go, there you are.
I would like to add, I think healing is only defined by you, right? I think that a lot of times when we talk about doing the work and doing the healing, sometimes we or others project what they feel like our time frame should be. And only you know what works for you and when you're ready or not ready. And only the part that you play in your own process, right? No one can do the work for you. No one can tell you what work you need because you truly getting to the core of you, as Gladys spoke, is you understanding that all of the outside noise and all the outside things that you do personally and professionally do not define the core essence of who you are. When the lights are off, when it's you in solitude, who are you? The longest relationship you're going to have with anybody in life is with yourself. And if you can't be honest about who you are and what your desires are, what you like and don't like, what you need or don't need outside of the superficial things and identifying your partner, and what that looks like, then you can't show up as your honest and authentic self to attract someone who is honest and authentic. And so the healing process really begins with you and owning the part that you play and identifying who you are and taking time with and for yourself. You can't speed through the process. And interesting enough, what I learned in my journey is that the learning comes in the journey. Skipping the steps, you will miss the message.
Okay.
What are some of the biggest red flags people overlook because they're lonely or afraid of being alone?
Oh, I want to answer that one because I coach on this almost every day. So the first one that comes up the most often, and it's so easy to overlook because it's easy to confuse, is confusing a man or a woman, depending on who you love, right? But the confusing that someone is just being open when all they're doing is broadcasting their pain. If they're still talking about their past and they're still talking about the ex and they're still talking about how awesome they were and how terrible she or he was, if they're still in that, right? If they are still talking about it and there's a lot of energy around it and it's very, they're coming out like the hero in the movie. Many women think, oh, he's so emotionally available. He talks about his emotions. So he's talking about the other woman or women that he was with, and it's not the same thing as being emotionally available. Someone who's emotionally available has done the work, so they're not carrying that around like the only story that there is to tell.
Right.
Their identity is tied up in that story. And you're just going to be a character in that story. And probably the proving that I was talking about before, trying to prove I'm not or prove I am something, is going to show up there. So that's the very first one. It's being able to tell the difference between somebody who's emotionally available and somebody who's still caught up in their pain. And then the other one, this is huge, is you've got to be able to be able to recognize consistency between word and action. If they're talking a big game, but there is no follow through, that is a big red flag. If they keep making promises that they break, there's always a reason, there's always a valid reason and a great story attached to it, then pay attention to that, because that is a sign of someone whose integrity is not strong, whose honesty is not a value and a core value, and who they're seeing something in you that makes them think that they're going to be able to get away with that kind of behavior. And if you don't have strong boundaries for yourself, like Kamesha and Gladys were talking about, if you don't know who you are, and a lot of people who they are, they're still trying to figure it out. And that's okay too, right? We're all on a journey. But if you don't really know who you are, and at the very least know what you will and won't tolerate, somebody will be able to tell you, and you haven't done your internal work, they'll say whatever they know you need to hear. And all of a sudden you're writing it off like, oh, it's just a bad moment, when really it's been like 10 or 12 similar situations that you haven't paid attention to.
Mhm.
And I would say, I'm sorry, I was going to say a third one is if you find yourself having to excuse, justify, rationalize behavior that you would not tolerate from your girlfriend or somebody else in your life. Oh, he's just stressed out. Oh, he just had a bad day at work. Oh, he's just really busy. And you are like, that's the whole thing about boundaries. And a lot of women believe that boundaries, we hear it all the time. They didn't respect my boundaries. No, your boundaries are written by you for you. You're the one who honors your boundaries. So if you're tolerating inexcusable, inappropriate behavior that you wouldn't tolerate from anybody else, and there's always, like, to Michelle's point, the reason, well, he's just stressed, or he's really busy, or he has his kids this weekend, or whatever it is, and it is a continuous thing. Don't look to see like he's not honoring my boundary, he's not giving me time. What am I tolerating that, and why? Like, we got to get curious, because if you're constant at especially at the beginning, you're making excuses for someone, that behavior does not go away or get better when you're in a relationship. Everything gets amplified, magnified, and put on surround sound, high definition once you're in a relationship. So don't be so much in a hurry to be with someone that you skip over the really valuable information that you're getting. And then later you're like, I didn't know, I didn't see. It's like, you didn't want to know or see why. Let's just get curious about it.
Yeah. One of my favorite lines is stop rewarding bad behavior. Because there's so many women that, like how you said, oh, he just had a bad day, or whatever. So yeah, Kamesha, with you, do you have anything to share as far as a red flag you saw?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest red flags, there's definitely a difference between loneliness and being alone, right? Loneliness brings waste of time. The reason why I say this is because haste makes waste. Oftentimes when you're lonely, you fill voids with people or things that are a waste of your time, right? And so when you start to do the healing process and you start to identify what is worth your time and what is truly of value to you that is feeding you, then you have better discernment on where you want to spend your time and who you want to spend your time with. Small, medium, or large time, right? And so being alone is not a bad thing, because again, the longest relationship you're going to have with anybody is with yourself. When all the noise stops, when you're not being fulfilled with work and being fulfilled through children, friendships, and all the other things, being alone can be a very healthy space. I think society has made us feel that being alone and lonely are two things together, and they're not, right? And so when there's loneliness, then you settle for things that you shouldn't settle for. You don't allow people to respect your boundaries. You don't put boundaries in place because something is better than nothing. And I think that is the misnomer, particularly in relationships, because again, society conditions us that we're supposed to be with somebody. We're supposed to have companionship. We're supposed to be in a relationship. The relationship is supposed to transition to marriage. And sometimes people are just passing through.
So when you got your divorce, do you remember any red flags when you first started dating somebody? Give me like one or two.
Yeah. So I was married for 13 years. I did not have heartbreak technically in my divorce. I chose to be divorced because I realized that I had settled into a space that was no longer feeding me or what I was looking to cultivate for my children. And the red flags were there. I got married in my 20s, so I didn't know what I didn't know. I thought that the immaturity of my ex-husband would grow into maturity as I too was growing and maturing. And it's interesting enough, I've been divorced 8 years. My ex-husband is 47 years old and really is no further along than where he was when I met him at 24. And I say that with no shade, but it's just the fact that the expectation is we all are supposed to grow. And I've had a front row seat of watching my ex-husband not grow. And so the person who was playing video games, who only thought of himself, inadvertently, I feel like not from a selfish place intentionally, it's just the fact that he was raised by a single parent. I was raised in a marital home, so I knew what partnership and things looked like and should be like, or the idea of what it felt like. And I did not have that. So that was definitely one red flag. And two was thinking that because he was my husband, he would automatically be my support system and my helpmate. And when I realized that everything that he did, even from me to the dating space, was me prompting him and asking. And I don't want to say begging, but it was more like, hey, you should show up for this. And I need your support, as opposed to him giving it willingly and freely without being prompted. That continued throughout the marriage. And so I was not supported in that space. When I did things personally, professionally, there was no one cheerleading for me. There was no one pushing me forward. There was no one partnering with me in the decisions that I was making for the whole. So those are the two main flags that I assumed would be growing as we were supposed to be growing together. But it was like we were just living two separate lives in a partnership and a relationship that was not a partnership and definitely wasn't a relationship that was fulfilling for me.
Okay.
Girl, we have the same story.
Yeah.
We have this like 13, married 13 years, except I was 17 when I got married.
Wow. Wow.
You know what I
Early.
didn't know, I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting divorced because he had an affair with somebody in my family.
Oh,
Ooh.
I know,
Ooh.
right? And that used to be my story, and I used to get that reaction. But now I just share it for, what difference it can make for people. Why I wanted to say something about it is because when we are women who we just know how to get things done, we're
Yes.
highly driven, high achieving. When at that age, and even at any age, if you haven't learned that your job is not like your man is not your fixer upper project, you
Right.
get to
build.
someone who already comes
Build a bear.
built. He's already built, right? He's already assembled and he's already got it going on.
There you go.
What happens is because we're so used to producing results and because we know how to make things happen, we think we're going to make him happen.
Yes.
And that is going to be the biggest waste of time and the biggest source of frustration. And what happens is you're emotionally exhausted. You feel like you're depleted. All your
Yes.
energy is going into lifting somebody else up, and you feel like, what about me? And it's a very painful place to be. And it's
Ooh.
like being alone in a marriage, which is even lonelier than being
Yes.
single. So yeah, so that's that thinking that we're going to change somebody, especially when we're used to being able to produce results, is a really big deal. And it's a red flag. If you find yourself having to prompt for
Yeah.
what you want, what you need, what would be just given freely by somebody who really cares and wants to be with you.
One thing I heard that always stuck with me is potential isn't enough. We always want to
Ooh.
say potential.
Stop dating
It's not-
potential.
Yeah.
So, but
Wait.
back even like to Michelle, like she married at a very young age. I got married at 27. And so in the 20s, you are in the potential phase of life. Everything that you've learned from, schooling and all the things that you are becoming personally, professionally is evolving in that young space. And so again, it goes back to you don't know what you don't know. And we all have potential. I wasn't where I was at 27 at where I am now. And so it's just you don't know that some people, or I think we get caught up. I know for me, and it sounds very similar to Michelle, I feel like I was definitely caught up in the potential of who I saw the greatness that my husband would be. My husband went to a very elite college and university, one of the upper echelon schools in the country. And so I equated that with success, and I measured his potential based on where I knew that he could grow into. And he just never became that person. And so it was my own ideology of what I saw for him, not even just for me, but even for himself, even outside of myself. And so you don't know again what you don't know. And it's just unfortunate that things unfold and just move in different directions, that the fairy tale of the love and the life that you embark upon with someone else just never shows itself.
Jennifer, for you, do you remember any red flags that told you you shouldn't be married?
Of course.
Give us a couple of them. She was married for 20
My
years,
husband
20
was
years, right? 19 or 20 years.
19 years before I decided to walk away. The red flags I saw was him being a very controlling person before marriage. This is before marriage, of course. We dated for 2 years. He was controlling, even to down to cooking or
Mm.
simple things. Yeah, it was very controlling. For somebody said, I think it was you, Kamesha, about lessons and blessings. So a
Mhm.
lot of things that I took from that was lessons. So, but they were red flags. He was also an educational freak, 3 master degrees in
Mm.
different levels of psychology. So he wanted to fix me. He would always tell me, you got this. You're smarter than you think. You just don't see your own potential. And he was a pusher.
Mm.
But that ended up to be a blessing. That's why I've been a nurse for 40 years because of him. So yeah, there were red flags, but I want to take what you said, Kamesha, and use those because I went forward with the marriage and I want to come out on the other side being blessed by those barriers that I saw up front.
May I say something about that? Because Michelle and I see this, we work primarily with highly driven entrepreneurial or corporate women. And a lot of times, because we're such strong women, we
Mhm.
confuse control in a man for leadership.
Ooh.
Mhm.
So when you're first getting to know him, it kind of makes you feel safe, like, oh, he's taking the lead. Even though
Mhm.
Oh,
in the background, all the bells and whistles are going off, like, oh, I didn't like how that felt. But you use it for your good. And you said you became a nurse because of him, Jennifer. You became a nurse because of you. You were the one who took, even though it felt like pushing, even though it felt like he was telling you, what you should do. That potential, that drive was inside of you. So
Mm.
highly driven women can confuse his control for leadership. They can also confuse their strength, right?
Mhm.
And their power as, you manage and you direct and you tell people what to do all day. And then you come home and you start telling him what to do, how to do it, by when to do it. Back to what Michelle and Kamesha were talking about. And that's not leadership either. And that certainly isn't partnership. So confusing control for leadership is one thing. And then the other thing was both of you shared about their education, about how, you perceived that to mean like on paper, right? How people say
Yes.
on
On
paper.
paper.
And so that's why Michelle and I are always like, you need to chuck the checklist. That checklist about his education, and we're not telling you to live under a bridge with, Quasimodo and, eat dirt. We're not saying that. But those things, we confuse them because your checklist about what he needs to do, what he needs to have, how he needs to look, how much money he needs to make, that is a list of your fears.
Mm.
What you're afraid is going to happen or is not going to happen if he doesn't have those things. So when you focus instead on what is the experience that I want to have? What does partnership look like? What does communication feel like? What is the intimacy, emotional, physical, spiritual? What does all of that feel like? And you make that your focus. It doesn't matter how many degrees he has, where he went to school, what his salary is. What matters is the experience that you have when you are with him, because that's what's going to take you to forever. A degree does not take you to forever, because we all know there's many, many men with lots of degrees and lots of money who do not know how to treat a strong woman, how to love a strong woman. And we don't have time for that. Like we just
Okay. So this show is all about dating after heartbreak. So I want to ask all of you, and you could just give me one or two things that you would ask on a first date to see if there's some compatibility and not just chemistry. Because sometimes, the little girl down there starts talking and we forget the brain of it.
Because chemistry, all chemistry is your body reacting to a memory. That person reminds you of somebody you found attractive, or maybe even the person, like Michelle was saying, trying to prove I can fix him this time, like that pattern. So I would say one of the first things that I would like to know about someone is, what are you most passionate about? Like, what's a goal that you're most passionate about? That's going to tell me personality. That's going to tell me what he values. Like maybe it's a passion project. Maybe it's a hobby. Maybe he's involved in a charity. I don't know. But what are you really passionate about? And what is one of your biggest goals? That lets me know a lot about the person's character. That's more important than anything on the checklist, is his character. And it's also going to give me a sense of how does he even have vision, right? The Bible says without vision, the people perish. Everything falls apart. So what is the vision? It doesn't have to include me. It's the first date. Like, ladies, he's eating steak and you're planning your wedding. Like, just be here on the date. Be here. But that would be a great conversation to have, regardless of whether or not he ends up being my life partner. It would be a great conversation that you can probably have other conversations from there that are valuable.
Michelle?
Yeah, I love this question because I think people do confuse chemistry with compatibility, and they're both completely separate things. And chemistry is what's going to draw you to him and him to you, and it lets you know that you're attracted to each other. But what really gets people into relationships that last a lifetime is aligned values. So when you're focusing more on values than chemistry, that's already going to be a game changer. And also keeping conversation light. You're not going to learn everything about this person on the first. And that's a big mistake people make. I actually had a client once that told the guy that she was going to be married by this day. She was going to have 3 kids. These were their names. I'm like, oh my God, amazing that he stayed sitting in the restaurant. But anyway, I would have been like, but the thing that I would say is to focus the questions on values and character, like Gladys said. So one question that I've shared with my clients is, if you were told you had to leave everything behind and only take 3 things that are in your life right now with you, what would you take with you? He might say a person, he might say a valuable, he might focus only on material things. He might not, he might not mention his kids if that was one thing that he would take with him. It's telling you a lot about the person, and the things that he takes with him will tell you, wow, this is somebody who really values. And then you'll understand what he puts first in his life without having to ask, what are your values? And then another one would be, if you had to change, or you had the chance to do over any one section of your life, what would it be? Now he's going to talk to you about something without you saying, tell me about your ex.
Yeah.
So now you're also getting into the heart. You'll see how much of himself he will share. I mean, it's the first date, so don't expect everything. But those are the kinds of things that dating skills that are important, so that you're not either trying to go too deep in the beginning and confusing now this fake emotional connection with I know him well enough, but really giving yourself time to get to know them and having those important conversations without calling it values, without calling it, ex relationships and things like that.
Anybody else want to add?
I would like to add, I've done this many times because I'm still single. Do you love yourself? I found myself in a situation where I didn't love myself. And that is a question I ask men. Because if you don't love yourself, you can't love someone else. And the other question I would ask is, are you able to talk about difficult issues? Men tend to shut down where we want to have these discussions. They don't. So would like to know those 2 things, because as Gladys says, then you can kind of build on what type of character this person is sitting in front of you.
I mean, my only thing is I could just see them lying with the answer.
Giving you the answer they want you to hear, I think, will be most, impactful in the moment.
Yeah.
Then you can ask, so here's, I was
reword that word.
You could say, are you able to talk about difficult conversations, and what's the one you had recently that you were like, wow, I did a good job at that?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, get an example. Exactly.
I did a really good job at that. And then that way you're hearing what he's saying. Now, if he thinks he did a good job because he left somebody feeling small, really good information to have. If he did a good job because both people came out in an understanding of something, that's also really good information to have.
Right.
Kamesha, when you finally decided to date again, what was the biggest fear? And what surprised you most about getting back out there?
So for me, I was married for 13 years and I had 2 small children when I got divorced. My youngest was 1, my oldest was 5. And so the biggest fear was the responsibility of making the next calculated decision that also had an impact not only on me, but also with my children. I couldn't afford to make a misstep because my children are watching me. My children are learning from me. They're watching how I'm unpacking my divorce. And even though they were young, you'd be surprised that children learn more from what they see than versus what you teach, right? So just trying to figure out when was a good time to get back out there. And my biggest fear was getting back out there too soon with the wrong person and not taking time enough for myself to redefine who is the version of me that is now in this new space. having gone through a marriage, I had conformed to what was best in that situation, right? So coming out of it as almost at the time a 40-year-old woman, trying to understand who am I at this juncture of my life. So much of me had changed in my marriage. I'd, gotten a new position, several new positions at work. I accomplished a lot more things. My status as a person, my discernment, my goals, my dreams, my aspirations, my boundaries, all of those things were different, but I had to figure out what they were because the version of me that was different post divorce immediately was not who I was evolving into to understand who was I going to be as my authentic self in my next relationship, whatever that looked like. Also, keep in mind, I'm an only child. So I was very much okay with being by myself. I was not willing to make a sacrifice that impacted my children negatively. So I had already convinced myself, I know, as Gladys had said, like, this was my one and done. I had gotten married to be in my forever place. And so I did not even see where someone else would come into the fold because, again, I cannot make another misstep with my children in tow. And so I had to get through the grief of my marriage. A lot of people don't talk about the grief of my marriage. And though I wanted my divorce, I went through several levels of shame that this was not my forever place. My identity was tied to being Mrs. So-and-so. Who am I again? I was embarrassed. I had two small children. People were like, oh my God, you should have stayed for the kids and all the things. But I had to remember that he was my person. And then being a father was a totally different role that didn't include me. Right. And so I had to unpack all of the disappointments I'd had with myself, not identifying the red flags, not leaving sooner, choosing this person as my children's forever person, though he wasn't my forever person. Once I got over that hurdle, then I discovered that I deserved to be loved. I deserved to have companionship. And even if it did not turn into marriage, I still desired to have someone that loved on me from a place that my children or my job or my friends couldn't love on me. Right. And so one of the things that was surprising for me when I got back out there was that I was desirable. You get into this mode where you do feel broken. And I had conformed into like this mother space where all I did was work and come home and parent. And I didn't remember who I was, the fun Kamesha, the one who was light, who enjoyed conversation with a male partner and all the things. And I quickly learned too that dating single men who had never been married was not my jam, right? If you had not been at that level of commitment in a relationship, having a girlfriend is not the same as being a husband and having a wife, right? And so in my initial thought process, like, oh, I didn't really want to date other married men and not married men. Let me be clear. Men who had been divorced, right? Because I think I was let me reshape marriage by having someone who had never been in this space before. But men who had never been married before did not understand the level of commitment I had to my children. My children came first. You can't call me on a Friday night, evening at 3:00 and like say, hey, meet me for dinner at 7. Hey, I've got to make arrangements for my children. And so they didn't understand the sacrifices of not being readily available. So
Right.
someone who also had been a husband and had that level of commitment and understood family and all the other different nuances that marriage experiences bring, I was like, oh, I need to be with someone who understands that level of commitment. Because I felt like a lot of single men who had never been married had the ideology of what marriage was, but because they hadn't experienced it, you can only really speak from the storybook space or the space and the experiences that you've heard of from your friends or other things that you've seen or not seen. You haven't felt it for yourself.
Right.
So those were the biggest things that I felt like prepared me to get back out there, realize my value was not in the person I was in my marriage, but the value of who I was becoming and evolving into, and trust myself. Remember who the F I was and be clear on that and stand on my 10 with that. And knew that my time was coming, not rushing. I was not in a hurry to position someone in front of my children. I was not in a rush to choose just somebody because I needed the next person to be more calculated as my person as opposed to just fulfilling a space, a void.
Right. There's a lot of people that are rushing to be in a relationship or they feel, that they can't be alone, like you said. So with that said, I want you all to share your last piece of advice to give to someone who's hoping to find a healthy and lasting relationship after heartbreak.
One piece of advice I would give is to have grace with yourself. Sometimes and oftentimes things fall apart for a reason. But I definitely feel like the piece of advice would just be gentle with yourself, trust the process, slow down so that you can make sure decisions, even if they're not your forever place. Sometimes you'll be in another 2 or 3 year relationship because it's still to teach you something about yourself and about other people, and not to position your next person has to be your forever person, or because we've been together so long, this has to work out. Just roll with it. Just roll with it.
Thank you. Gladys, what you got to say? Your last piece of advice.
I would say the most important thing is, a lot of times, Michelle and I hear just last night, it isn't in the cards for me. I'm not meant to be in a relationship. If God really wanted me to be in a relationship, he would have sent me someone like he's some sort of FedEx delivery guy. But what I'll say is like, and I always tell people, you don't want to make God responsible for your choices. Like I stopped making God responsible for my results a very long time ago. There's some things that are up to me. And then you want to ask yourself, Michelle and I keep saying, like, getting curious, like, what would have me think that I am the person for which love is not a possibility, for which love is not in the cards? Like you are worthy and deserving of the love, the happiness, the partnership, the intimacy, the joy, the prosperity, the health, the wealth, all of it
All
that
of
your
it.
heart
Mhm.
desires. You don't need a man to fill your life, to be fulfilled. But if your heart desires it and you're pretending that that it doesn't matter to you, there is a love barrier. There's a fear, a limiting belief, or a pattern that's in the way. And it is secretly and silently sabotaging you out of the love and the happiness that you want. So that's why we're going to give you all the opportunity to uncover what is your love barrier in a free gift that Simone's going to put in the notes of
Show
this
notes.
episode, the show notes, because when it's a blind spot, it's the not I kind of sort of see you spot. It really is. I don't see it. I don't know what I don't know. So if you desire it, if it is a desire of your heart, trust and know that you are equipped and empowered and enabled to create the happiness, the life, and the love that your heart desires. And we would be honored to be able to walk you through that journey.
So what is it? A download, a class?
It's a quiz. It's called the Love Barrier Quiz. So to answer a series of questions, there's one for women who are single. There's also one for women who are in relationships.
Okay.
Because like, you have a audience members of all relationship statuses. And when you take that quiz, it just has you look at what are some of the patterns, what are some of the thoughts that I have. And then we help you to identify what is the primary love barrier that is sabotaging your love life.
Mhm.
And then what's your website so that our listeners can just follow you as well?
Our website is heartsdesire.intl.com. One of the best ways, though, to find us, I'm sure you're going to put our social media links, is on Facebook and on Instagram. I'm actually doing two series of video series on our on all of our social media platforms, including YouTube, about number one, the challenges that successful women face when it comes to love, because you're not going crazy. There are some challenges. And the other one is about love lessons that I've learned over the last, 27 years. We just celebrated our 26th wedding anniversary this week. So I'm like, the love lessons, and it's love lessons I learned sometimes the hard way. So if you avoid it, you can, go ahead and jump on our social media so you can catch those two series.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here. And Michelle, any last words for you? Or
Yeah, the number one thing I would say is this. Forgiveness is a big thing, and it's not only forgiving the other person, but forgiving yourself so that you make space in your life and in your heart so that you can bring a new kind of love in for yourself and for your future partner. And when you do that, sometimes you need help to do that, and that's okay. Some of us can do it on our own, some of us need help, but it doesn't have to take a long time. It doesn't have to take a long time. I know our clients between 3 to 9 months, they're already in the new relationship. We've already celebrated 5 weddings. It doesn't have to take a long time, but you got to be willing to do the work, fall in love with yourself, forgive yourself so that you can open up and receive the love that you really want.
you.
Love it.
Thank you. I'm so happy to have you guys again. And you're now going to be experts on Jennifer's show as well as on your Power Radio. Jennifer, record, so don't hang up.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, ladies. Thank you, Kamesha. Thank you, Gladys and Michelle, for being here. You guys gave so much information to Jennifer's listeners, and we learned a lot. I know I got another reinforcement of some stuff too, and some great questions. Jennifer, anything you want to say?
I'd just like to thank you ladies for coming on the show. My goal in life, writing a book, was to share it with other women, men, because I think my story is probably everybody's story. And thank you so much. It is my legacy. Thanks for being a part of that.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you for trusting us.
So Jennifer, I know we got another juicy scene from your book, Divorcing into Paradise. Can you share like a memorable moment with us?
Yes, portion in the book, there was a time about when I was 41 that I realized that all my unhappiness I had put into my subconscious mind. And it single-handedly worked itself out into my life, world, and affairs. All the arguments, discourse, jealousy, rage, anger, physical abuse, domestic violence, mental and emotional abuse I had experienced, as well as set in motion by me, because I didn't want that marriage anymore. I wrote a term paper, and I realized that the question that was given to me put me into this position to want to leave. The question said, can anything happen in your life that you did not want it to play out into your life? So I wrote a paper, and I allowed myself to forgive the 20 years that I had endured all of that suffering. I wanted to let him know I did not want to be in the marriage anymore and that I was leaving. He said in a threatening manner that I needed to stay until our son graduated from high school. But I knew that could not happen. If I stayed in that marriage, I would have surely perished.
Ooh, okay. Powerful. Well, I'm glad that you stuck to your guns. Thank you, listeners, so much for joining in the second episode of Love After the Fairytale. I hope today's conversation encouraged you, and I want you to make sure you follow Jennifer by going to her website. The link is in the bio and in the show notes. And make sure you share this with others, because there's so many people that need encouragement and need their eyes open to learn how to step out there and get started on another relationship when it's time, right?
Yeah.
Don't forget to grab a copy of her book. And all the links are in the show notes, like I said. We got a next episode coming up, episode number 3, which is why do women stay too long? We're going to really go deep into why intelligent, successful women stay in unhealthy relationships after they know when something is wrong. In this episode, we're going to explore trauma bonds, emotional attachment, love addiction, self-worth, and warning signs many people overlook. And Jennifer's going to share personal moments from her marriage that reflects on the things she wishes she recognized sooner. So thanks again for tuning in. Until next time.
The fairy tale may have ended, but your story isn't over.